All right, so this is the review for tomorrow's group quiz. Okay, tonight when I get home, I'm gonna just have it kind of maybe put you guys in some kind of order, random order, alphabetical. I have no idea, and we'll get something for you tomorrow. But for now, let's talk about this review. Okay, so very first question that you're gonna see in the review tomorrow is gonna be something that you have to identify a complex number for. Okay. Let me see here. Why is this thing? Give me a second. Identify a complex number. There's a dot right there. Remember, complex numbers and normal points, they work the same way. First thing you want to do is you want to identify the point. So this point right here in red is the point -2, comma 3. Okay? But that's not a complex number. That's just a normal point. Okay, so for a complex number, you have to write it in this form. You're going to put -2 plus 3i. And that's the answer that they want to see. Okay, so you're just rewriting it in a complex form. Nothing more that you have to do with this problem. That's it. Okay, so problem number 1, when you guys do the group quiz, is to just identify a point in a complex number. All right, so that's 1. Now question 2 says simplify. Now you're going to notice there's an A, B, C, D because there are 5 parts to the simplify section. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is part A. Remember, when you see a negative inside of a square root, the first thing you do is you take it out by taking out an I, right? Because that gets rid of the -1 square root. Okay? Now, the 20, you're going to want to break this apart into 2 numbers, okay? One of which has a nice square root. So notice 4 times 5. 4 has a nice square root. The square root of 4 is 2. So you're just going to write 2 radical 5i. And there's your answer for part A. Okay? Now, for part B, we're not doing any crazy multiplication. You are going to have to try to at least distribute that negative. Hopefully you notice that. Okay, there will be a question like this on the quiz tomorrow where you're going to have to distribute a negative into a parenthesis, so keep your eye open for that. So when I do this, this is just 3i minus 2 plus 4i plus 6i. Now, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you see your like terms. So the 3i, the 4i, and the 6i are all like terms. So 3 plus 4 plus 6, that's going to be 13. So 13i, then you have your minus 2. But since they want it in complex number form, then the 13i should be in the back. The -2 should be in the front. So this should look like this. Okay, not that the answer above it is wrong, but it's not in the proper form. So you want to make sure you write it in the proper form.
We get points, you know, we don't.
Well, the way they want it, yeah, everything has to be in the proper form for complex numbers. So you want your A first, your BI second. Whether it's plus or minus doesn't really matter, but you got to put it in the right order. Okay. Now, part C, before I move on, actually, any questions on these two? All right, so hopefully you're seeing like, okay, not so bad. Part C, all you're going to do is multiply, okay? So 2i times I, that becomes 2i squared times a -4i. And then this is where you tell yourself, okay, I squared is the same as a -1. So this is 2 times -1 times -4i, okay? Now, multiply 2 times -1, you get -2 times a -4i. The last thing you have to do is multiply those two things together. So -2 times -4, that's a positive 8. So this will be 8i. And that's your answer. Okay? Again, not anything that's like really super difficult to do, but I guess the I squared is something you have to be aware of. Okay? Remember the definition for I squared. Okay? So when you guys are looking at that, I haven't decided whether or not you guys are going to get a set of notes for this, because most of the stuff that you're going to do doesn't require you to remember like major notes for it. Okay, so I haven't really told you guys yet like, hey, you can use a 3x5 card. Okay.
Can we?
I think that I squared, it might be the only thing you have to know. You will see as we do this. And then if you start saying like, oh man, I would have never known that, then let me know and we'll think about it. Sorry? I haven't yet. I'm going to do that today. Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on with part D. Okay. So for part D, we're going to basically just do foiling. Okay. So we're going to take negative, whoops, wrong thing here. We're going to take the negative 2 times 3 and the negative 2 times your 4i. Okay. So that's the first outer. If you guys, I had a student tell me last time they didn't know what FOIL was, so I guess maybe you guys, the teacher you had never expressed it like that. I usually don't teach it calling it FOIL. I usually just say it's distribution, okay? But FOIL means do the first terms, the outer terms, the inner terms, and the last terms. So FOIL, F-O-I-L. So this is right here the first, right? These two are first, then the outer. Okay, the outer numbers, the inner will be next, and then the last ones are going to be last, obviously. Okay, so let's multiply negative 2 times 3. That gives me a negative 6. There we go, negative 6. A negative 2 times a 4i is a negative 8i. Okay, and then you got to do your inner and your last. Okay, so the inner and the last, I times 3, that's 3i. And then I times 4i, that's going to be a positive 4i squared. Now notice, this is another time where the square comes out. So you guys are going to have to remember, I squared is a negative 1. So let me combine negative 8i plus 3i, that's a negative 5i. And then I'm going to write minus 4 instead of plus 4i squared. Okay? So the plus 4i squared, that's going to be 4 times negative 1. So it makes it a minus 4. So negative 6 minus 4 is a negative 10. Minus 5i. And you're done. Okay. Now, unfortunately, when I wrote this review for you guys, it cut off part E. So I'm going to rewrite it. Okay. But part E, notice it has the numerator on top and the denominator in the next page. Okay. So I'm just going to write it right here. Okay, so this will be part E. So this is a fraction, which means that in order to simplify it, you have to get rid of the I on the bottom. So the way you do that is by multiplying by the conjugate of the denominator. Now, since this denominator is a 2i, then the conjugate will be a negative 2i. Okay, so that's the conjugate of it. So start multiplying it. So we get our negative 2i times a 4, that's a negative 8i. And then negative 2i times a negative 3i, that's a positive 6i squared. On the bottom, a 2i times a negative 2i is a negative 4i squared. Okay, now 6i squared, remember, I squared makes it negative, so that positive 6i squared becomes a negative 6. So let me rewrite this. Negative 6 minus 8i over, what happens on the bottom? It's a positive 4, and you're done. Okay? So that's all you have to do.
Can we write like definitions? Like conjugates?
No, you don't have to write anything. Just do the work.
Like can we?
If you want to, you can write conjugates and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's not required.
Yeah, can we use
So,
the 3/5 part?
oh, I haven't decided yet. That's what you're asking me then. Yeah, no. Once we're done with this, we're going to check to see how much stuff you actually have to know, right? So far, only the I squared, I think, is a thing. And then conjugates, I mean, that might be something else. But that's like 2 things. If you can't remember 2 things, we've got more than math problems, right? 2 things you should be able to remember 2 things. Right? Now, if I see something really weird happen right now, then sure. Okay? Okay. You're going to be able to use a 3x5 card. Because these next problems require some definitions. Okay? So, yeah, 3x5 inch, okay, or cut it out, whatever you want to do. These are really easy problems. You guys remember doing homework for these? Right? If you don't, you better start. But if you did, all you need to do is check the highest power and the coefficient. So let me just highlight them for you guys. Okay, highest power coefficient, highest power and the leading coefficient. So that's all you're going to worry about. Now, they tell us describe the left and right hand behavior of each function. Okay? So, since this is a square power, that means n is even, and the coefficient is positive, that means that it goes top left to top right. And this is on your notes. Remember, we took a lot of notes when I taught this to you guys. I think I taught it to you guys last Friday. Okay, so look at your notes from last Friday. This is a parabola. It opens up, so it goes up to the left and up to the right. So I'm going to say it goes top left, top right. Okay, and that's because of the fact that I have an even power with a positive leading coefficient. Okay, now for part B, I have an even power with the negative leading coefficient. So even power, that means it either both goes up and up or down and down. You know if it goes up and up if the coefficient is positive, but since this one's negative, that means it goes down, down. So I'm going to put, bottom left to bottom right. Now, if it was, let's say, a third power here for the 4 instead. Let's say there was the highest power was a 3 and it was negative, then you'd say top left to bottom right. Okay? So those are the definitions you might want to put on that card. Okay? To go over like, okay, what's the trick to figuring out the power? So, bottom right. But yeah, you're going to have 2 questions like this on your quiz as well. That's all you have to do. No work required. It's just look at the information, translate it to what it means. Okay? Now, this says solve each equation using the quadratic formula. You're going to have one of these on your test. Okay? This might actually be the hardest one, to be honest with you, this question. Okay? Maybe I'm wrong, but I think this might be the hardest one. Whenever you have to solve using the quadratic formula, so let's see, x equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. When you do this, first you got to fix your problem. So in order to fix it, I got to move this negative 3 over to this side. So I'm going to rewrite the equation, 2y squared minus y plus 3 equals to 0. Okay? And now I know that my ABCs are, well, A is 2, right? This 2 right here is my A. My B is negative 1. And my C value is a positive 3. Okay? So 2, negative 1, and 3. And all you got to do is plug it into that formula. And then once you do that, solve. So let's do that really quick. Okay, so x equals negative b. If b is negative 1, that means negative b is a positive 1. Square root of 1 minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. Now I'm doing this kind of quick just because, again, I don't think I need to teach you guys how to multiply. So I'm just going through it real fast because I'm trying to get through the review so you have enough time to either relax or ask some questions. So 1 minus 4 times 2, that's 8, so that's 24. Okay, and then this will be 4 right here. So that's x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 24 over 4. Now, everything's great up to this point, but now you have this square root of negative 24. Now, we know you can't have a negative inside a square root, so you got to take a I out, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of scratch work on the side, okay? So a little bit of scratch work here. Square root of negative 24 is square root of 24i. Okay? So square root of 24i. Now, the square root of 24, 2 numbers that multiply 24 can be 6 and 4. And 4 has a nice square root. So that's 4 times 6i, which is 2 radical 6i. So instead of writing the square root of negative 20... Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Start over. Rewind.
Right.
What did I do? What did I do? No one stopped me, but what did I do? What should be inside the square root?
I.
Well, The I goes outside, but I put negative 24. I'm telling you that's wrong. Negative 23. I just saw that right now. Right? That should be a negative 23, which actually has no nice way of breaking it down. So here is your answer for this one. I'm going to change the color here just to kind of let you guys see that this was a mistake at first. All right, so that's what your answer should be. 1 plus or minus radical 23i over 4. Okay, you don't have to do anything more than that. Just kind of leave it the way it is. Okay, so if it would have been a negative 24, we could have fixed it, but this one is not. Okay, this is a prime number, so that's just the way it is. So before I move on to this next piece, let me just really quick go back up here. Okay, and that way we can go through the, I guess you could say, the harder part of the test. Again, any questions on this, how to figure that out? So hopefully you guys all agree that's easy. Any questions on just the simplification parts, the multiplying, combining like terms, stuff like that? Anything that seems kind of off? All right. Anybody have questions on conjugates? By the way, notice this conjugate. The conjugates will not get harder than that. Remember some of the homework you guys had like a 2 minus 3i in the denominator, so you had to multiply by 2 plus 3i. There's none of those questions. Okay? So as hard as it's going to be is like this, with just the one term on the bottom. Okay, a single monomial, not a binomial. So, all right, questions on this one, describing behavior left and right. Again, it would be good if you guys have your notes with you to help you out with that. We're okay. And then this one, hopefully, it's just remember the formula, so make sure you guys write it down. If you forget, there's always a poster back there, but I don't know if everybody can see it from this corner. I'm going to wait. Aiden, are we good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So, all right, so 5. This is what we did yesterday, so if you were not here yesterday, pay close attention, okay? It's relatively simple. They said find the degree of the function defined by the ordered pairs. Now notice yesterday's homework, they already were given to you guys in a chart, right? On your test, they're actually going to tell you make a chart from the ordered pairs. I just want you guys to see. They could give it to you like this. So what you're going to want to do is create a chart. I don't know if I need that many, but 0, -2, 1, -1, 2, 2, 3, 7, and 4, 14. Okay? So you're going to create a chart first. Once you create that chart, you start taking your differences, right? So we get these two numbers, these two numbers, these two numbers, and those two numbers, the y values, and we take our differences. So -1 minus -2, that's equal to 1. Okay, 2 minus -1, that's 3. 7 minus 2 is 5, and 14 minus 7 is 7. Okay, I'm basically just subtracting like this. Okay, those two, and those two. Okay, now this is my firsts. Okay,
Wait, -1 minus -2.
positive 1. Because remember, minus a negative is a plus, right? So, so that's my first. Remember, the goal is that all those numbers should be identical, but they're not. So that means I'm not done yet. I don't know what the degree is yet, so I go for my second differences, right? So I get those. And then I do 3 minus 1, that's 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. 7 minus 5 is 2. So here we go. That's exactly what I want to see. Okay, all the numbers are the same. It happened on my second difference, right? That means that the power for my function is a degree 2. Okay, so I'm just going to write degree equals 2. And that's all you have to do for that problem. Okay, so if it didn't happen here, then you take another difference. And if it happens on the third difference, then it's degree 3. If it happens on the fourth difference where all the numbers match, then it's degree 4. Okay?
Do we have to remember the linear, quadratic, and cubic?
Well, remember, you do have to know that linear is first power, but they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna ask you to name it, or else I would have wrote it there. Okay, but yeah, linear is first power, quadratic is second, cubic is third, quartic is fourth, etc. I mean, you might want to write it down just for your sake, but I don't think it's going to show up on the test. Well, actually, they do ask you to name the function once, which is, I think, in the next problem. Yeah. So check this out. So question number 6. Use the graph that I gave you and tell me what is the degree of the graph. I mean, you should know that it's a positive, not positive, an even power, right? Because notice how it goes up, up. So that's kind of a hint. But to figure out the degree, remember we would figure out the number of sign change, or not the number of sign changes, the number of direction changes, okay? And then just add 1. So it goes down and then up, so that's one direction change. Then back down, that's 2 direction changes. Then back up, that's 3 direction changes. So since it changes directions 3 times, then just add 1, and you're going to say degree of 4. So the number of direction changes plus 1. That's how you figure out the degree. Okay, the number of direction changes plus 1. Now, what is the name of the polynomial? So now I guess we could say, yeah, it might benefit you. So this is a 4th power, you're going to say it's quartic. Or you can put quartic function, quartic polynomial, whatever. What is the sign of the leading coefficient? Well, since it goes up and up, the leading coefficient must be positive, right? Because if it was negative, it'd go down and down. So we're going to say positive. Questions on this one?
How did you get 4? I'm confused.
So remember the sign changes, right? So check it out. It's going down and then up. So right here, that's one sign change. It went down, then up. What am I saying sign change? I'm stuck in calc here. Direction change. So it was going down and then up, so it changes direction. That's one time. Okay? And then as it was going up, it went back down, right? So that's another sign change right there. Direction change. Keep saying sign change. Sorry, direction change. And then it was going down, and then it went up. So that's another direction change. So the total number of direction changes is 1, 2, 3. So to figure out the degree, you get the direction changes and add 1 to it. So 3 plus 1 gives me 4. Any other questions on this one? Again, there's going to be one problem like this. They're going to ask you the same exact type of questions. You just got to understand how to figure them out. Okay, it's not a hard problem. It's just, notice for this, you might want to use that definition. I gave it to you guys. For this, you're going to want to use the definition. This one, you're going to want to use definition of the left and right hand behavior that we had. Remember all those big notes and stuff? So yeah, you're going to want to use that. So yes, again, to repeat, a 3x5 card will be available for you if you'd like it. Okay? So the last question we're going to go over. This is the stuff that we did Monday and Tuesday. Okay? Says you are designing an open box with dimensions of 10 feet by 12 feet using cardboard. Okay? So 10 feet, let me just write this down here. 10 feet by 12 feet. And we're going to go through this quickly because what they want us to do doesn't take very long. But you just have to know what you're doing, but it doesn't take very long. Part A says draw a picture of the cardboard with square cutouts. So I'm just going to do this really quick. Okay, here's the cardboard, square cutouts. And the longer side, I'll call it 12. Shorter side will be 10. This is in feet. And then the cutouts, remember, we just kind of marked them as X, right? So I colored this, and you don't have to do it. I just do it because I want to see a visual of what's going to be happening. So there's my picture. If you look at the notes that we did, they all look like this. So, I mean, it shouldn't be like, oh, that's surprising. That's what we're supposed to do. You draw a picture of it. Write a formula for the volume. Now, remember, when we wrote the formula for the volume, we started with X for the height. But now we got to figure out the length and the width. So those normally end up being binomials. The length is supposed to be 12, but I take away these little boxes, right? And these boxes are in X and X terms. So I take away 2x's, right? So it's going to be 12 minus 2x. For the height, what should I write? Uh-huh. Minus 2x's, right? So minus 2x. There you go. You just wrote the volume. Yeah. So you just wrote the volume. C, multiply the factors for the volume. In other words, go ahead and multiply out your volume. So I'm going to distribute that first, okay? So this might be the most annoying part of this problem. You're going to distribute, so this is going to be 12x minus 2x squared times 10 minus 2x. And then we're going to distribute again. What did I do?
If you just distribute it to the first one.
Oh, no, you only go to the first one. Yeah. And then from there, we're going to distribute everything over. So we'll do these terms here first. So like I said, this might be the most annoying part of the test. 12x times 10, that's 120x. 12x times negative 2x, that's negative 24x squared. And then do these bottom ones here. So negative 2x times 10, that's negative 20x squared. And negative 2x times, negative 2x squared times the negative 2x is positive 4x cubed. Combine any like terms. So I'm going to write my cubic function in the front. 4x cubed minus 44x squared plus 120x. So great. I did it. I multiplied everything out. Okay. Next part. Graph the function on Desmos. So that means you guys better have your computers. I'm not going to let you guys use your phones on the test. Okay. So make sure you bring your computers. At least... well, everybody bring yours because I'm not sure which group you're going to be in yet. But you're going to do this on Desmos. So you're going to type this out on Desmos and it's going to give you a picture. Okay? Now this is the part that we're going to do here. So let me see. Let's go to Desmos. I hate the way Desmos behaves with this, but let's see. So it was 4x to the third, right? So 4x cubed. Actually, wait, what am I doing? I should do this. 4x to the third. And then, what was it? Oh, it was minus 44x if I'm right? Minus 44. Yeah, I wish this thing would behave, but it doesn't. 44x squared. And then, was it a plus or a minus 120? Let's see. Plus 120x. So plus 120x. All right. So I'll zoom out. I mean, it's a pretty large function, but there you go. Let me make this so it's projector friendly. So there you go. It looks really weird. But the question that they asked us was, what is the maximum of the volume? Remember, the maximum means the y value. Okay, and then they're going to want the x value after. So let me go to the picture. I'm going to click on the graph. And you're going to notice it shows us a point way up there. So I'm just going to press that point. So the maximum volume is 96.771. And the x value where that happens is 1.811. Okay, so let me just write that down really quick. 96.771. So right here, 96.771. That's the maximum volume. And the x value was 1.811. Let me double check that. Why isn't it working? 1.811, that's correct. So that's it. And then that's the end of the test, basically. Okay? Notice no work to do here on paper, but you got to do it on your computer. Okay, and it won't be such a bother like for some reason with the tablet, anytime I press a number on an on-screen keyboard, it always wants to bring out my actual keyboard, so that's why you see it going back up and down. I guess I could turn it off. That actually is a good idea. I'll do that for the next class. Yeah, but that's all you have to do. Remember, your x is your x coordinate, your volume is your y coordinate. Okay, so if you have any questions on this, come and see me, okay? I can go through and go over it with you guys. I am sending you guys this. I'm going to send you guys the clean version of this and also the video, okay?